Bess Kalb is an Emmy-nominated writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live. Her writing for the show earned her a Writers Guild Award in 2016. She's also written for the Oscars and the Emmys. A regular contributor to the New Yorker's Daily Shouts, her work has been published in The New Republic, Grantland, Salon.com, Wired, The Nation, and elsewhere. She lives in Los Angeles. Bess, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thanks for joining, and congratulations on the book. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Evan, and thank you everybody who's watching from solitary confinement. It's surreal to be doing this. This is, of course, not a traditional book tour, but hopefully it will give some semblance of an author event, and we can all just pretend that we are in Booksmith in a beautiful shop on the coolest street in America, in the Haight-Ashbury, surrounded by history and good vibes and no airborne pathogens. So we'll go there in our minds together, and welcome to Booksmith. I'm Bess Kalb. As Evan said, I'm a TV writer, and I'm here today to talk about the original television books. Books are a paper object bound by cloth. They're very lightweight. They're nice. You can buy this book in particular from Booksmith. Supporting local booksellers right now is so important. The jewel of every neighborhood, in my opinion, is the local bookshop, and I would love it if you choose to buy this book or any book. You do so from IndieBound, bookshop.org, or directly from Booksmith's website. Let's keep the lights on for the places that keep our lights on. That was extremely lame, and you won't find writing like that in this book right here. Nobody will tell you this but me. If you're still with us, I'd love to tell you a little bit about why I wrote this book. Maybe some of you have already read it. I'm so thrilled that it's resonating with such a wide audience. I've not actually, I was talking to Evan about this right before we went live. I've not met anybody who's read the book outside my own family, because we all went into quarantine a few days before it was released. So I've been seeing your comments on Twitter and Instagram, posting about the book, supporting the book, and I see all of them, and it means a lot to me. When my baby naps and then goes to sleep at night, which hopefully just happened, I'm filled with such joy knowing that I'm sharing my work with you. This book came from, so thank you very much. And I look forward to answering your questions and talking with you about the book. It's the most exciting thing of my life. I say this as a new mother, is having a book out in the world and being able to talk to people about it. So that is wonderful that we're able to do this. So I started writing this book 3 years ago. In 2017, my grandmother, Bobby Bell, passed away. She helped raise me. She was a constant presence in my life. She and I were friends and a granddaughter, grandmother. But I would say friends first in a lot of ways. She didn't have a grandmother attitude toward me. There was no cookie baking or like gentle babysitting. I was just sort of along for her ride from the time I was a few weeks old when my mother went back to work. And when she died, I was profoundly sad, and my life was very, very different suddenly. This person who I spoke to almost every day driving home from work, the person that I would just kibitz with and talk about my day, my enemies, my hair, listen about her day and her enemies and her hair, was gone. And I really don't think I spoke to anyone else on the phone in that kind of way. Maybe my parents, but but sometimes my grandma and I would just have the phone on, and we would both be cooking dinner occasionally and be like, is someone talking? That was our relationship. And so in that absence, I started thinking as her, thinking about what she would say about a situation. I remember going to the movies like 3 weeks after she died to distract myself. I don't remember what I was seeing, but I remember walking out the door, and this was April. It was legitimately warm out, and I just heard in my head, like, bring a sweater. If you catch your death, don't say I didn't tell you what would happen. And I was like, okay, this Jewish grandma thing. And then it got more and more specific. I would hear her tell me things like, you're going to break your ankle in those boots. I would just hear her. You'll never forgive yourself if you stay home from the party. Little whispers of her voice. And the writing project of this book had already happened. A few days after she died, I was tasked with writing the eulogy and delivering a eulogy at her funeral. And so I read a transcript of one of her voicemails, and I did a small riff on what she would be saying if she was at the funeral. And that voicemail is in the book. It's the voicemail about flying up from Florida to sit with me in New York City in my parents' small apartment when my mom went back to complete her medical residency. And the riff on the funeral is basically the opening of the book, which begins with, "It's a terrible thing to be dead." So this work ended up being the result of knowing my grandmother so well and missing her so much that she could fill a book through me. I have been listening to readers tell me that they cried a lot reading it. That was not my intention, and I apologize. I'm a comedy writer by trade. This is not the usual reaction that my writing elicits, but so sorry about that. But I believe that at the heart of any good joke is a gut-wrenching truth. The jokes that make me laugh the hardest, certainly jokes that have made me laugh the hardest in the past few weeks, are ones that sort of fill your mouth with blood as you laugh. I think that's why The Onion is so funny. I think that's why political satirists are so sharp and essential. So the book is, I think, bitterly sad and hopefully funny, because that's how I see life. That's how I experience life. And in this time that we're all in our houses behind our thank God, our internet connections, I've turned to this sort of molecular combination of sorrow and joy, almost hourly, the same emotion that this book came from. And I've thought a lot about my grandmother during this time. And maybe if you've read this book in the past few weeks, you've thought of her too, because the story of Bobby Bell, the story that I wrote, is the story of survival and grit and determination and humor and grace and perseverance in a way that seems impossible. My grandmother was born on a dining room table in a tenement in Greenpoint, and she was born to this 40-year-old mother, which now is totally normal. At the time was unheard of. And she was not wanted. She had nothing, and she managed to live a life that ended in a marble floored, custom upholstered apartment in Florida overlooking the ocean. And that sort of stratospheric climb happened because nothing could stop Bobby. And I think the reason nothing could stop her is the way that she was raised and where she came from. The story that was the hardest to write in this book is the story of her mother. And this is a story that I've thought a lot about in the past 2 weeks as we've dealt with a shifting sense of normal and a, at times, crushing sense of impossibility and existential dread. In this book and in my bones and blood and family is a 12-year-old girl who left a shtetl, Tsarist Russia, which at the time was called the Pale of Settlement, in a town in Belarus called Pinsk. And this girl, Rose, raised enough money to buy a ticket to America, and she made her way through Europe, out of Russia, through the mainland to the German coast, and sailed on a steamship by herself at 12. And I think I keep saying that because it's completely unbelievable to me. When I was 12, I was an idiot at Claire's, rehearsing for my bat mitzvah. I don't know. I was doing nothing. And she did everything. She did everything. She survived a remarkable journey. And as a result of that grit and bravery and resolve, was the matriarch of a family that resulted in someone who tried to pay tribute to her through this book that was released into the apocalypse. But I think it is an apocalypse that she prepared before, big time. I would love to say that there's an answer to survival in this book. I think there's really just a guide, a guidepost in it from my grandmother's grandfather. Something that my grandma said to me and something that was said in her house growing up was a Yiddish phrase that translates to, when the earth is cracking behind your feet, you put one foot in front of the other and keep walking. And I've thought about that. I've said this to a few friends in our various FaceTime conversations from the floors of our kitchens over the past couple of weeks. When the earth is cracking behind your feet, keep walking is my grandmother's mantra. It's recurrent throughout this book, and it has become mine. My husband and I were down to like this is not escaping the shtetl in Belarus, and this is certainly not in the throes of a medical catastrophe like so many people in this country and throughout the world are right now. But in our private reacclimation to new life, we've faced a few stunning moments of world change, and have thought, when the earth is cracking behind your feet, you put one foot in front of the other. Because I don't know if this is right. I will be very transparent with you guys. Today I had an infusion for an autoimmune disease that I have. So I was given an immunosuppressant drug today. And on the news, I'm told that I'm going to die because of that. And as I extend my arm so that the nurse could put an IV in, my grandmother's words were right there. It's, you just put one goddamn foot, she didn't say that, but put one foot in front of the other when the earth is cracking behind you and you walk forward. And here I am on the other side of that, fine and hoping for the best, because we have no other choice but to survive. And on that fun note, I would love to read you some comedy from the book. This is fun. I'm going to be fine, but it was scary, and I'm glad that I have this voice in my head that's much stronger than I am. Somebody who's lived through a lot more than I have, and was indefatigable. A word I've never said out loud. So, with that, I would love to read you a bedtime story if you're, or just give you some dinner theater if you are on the West Coast. And this is, in my opinion, I think this is my favorite part of the dialogues in this book. This is a real phone call voicemail exchange that my grandmother and I had when I went camping with my boyfriend, who is now the man putting my child to sleep a few rooms over. My husband, not in sin. So thank you, Grandma. All right, so here it is. If you have your book, you can follow the Haggadah on page 77. I have made that joke before, and I'm very proud of it. And as it gets closer to Passover, I will continue to use that. Okay. Phone call, December 2011. I don't even know if this thing is on, so who knows? Phone call, December 2011. Bessie, Grandma. Bess, thank God in heaven I got you. You haven't left for Yosemite Park? No, we're packing. We're about to get in the car. What's up? You're going to be freezing. It's freezing there. I know, I've packed along a lot of warm layers and I'll be inside. No, you won't. You'll be outside. Your mother says you're cross-country skiing. Yes, Charlie's family really likes to cross-country ski. I don't understand it. It's a ridiculous thing to do. It's not skiing, it's shuffling. It's fun, it's being outdoors, and it's not that hard. We practiced in Maine on a golf course. But you're not going to be on a golf course. One fall and you snap your leg and you're lying there in the middle of a wilderness and you can't get up. Surrounded by Charlie's family. And how's that going to look? They take you outside for 1 second and you're belly up in a ditch. Charlie led outdoor adventure trips for kids at a camp for 5 summers. I couldn't be with anyone more prepared for disaster. You are not some 10-year-old boy he can throw in his backpack at a moment's notice. You are not exactly small. Charlie, will you tell my grandma that I'm not going to die in Yosemite? This is Charlie's only line in the book. I'm not getting involved in this. Charlie says everything's going to be fine and he's very prepared. I thought you were worried about me being cold. Well, can't I be worried about more than one thing? Why don't they take you someplace normal, even normal skiing, somewhere with a hotel you can sit in? They like roughing it, being in nature, because they didn't come from suffering. They never chased mice around the attic with a broomstick and survived on $40 a week. I thought it was $45 a week. It was just enough to starve. Please, Grandma, just, you know what's roughing it? Lying on a straw bed with meningitis, and the only medication we can afford is cod liver oil from the Italian neighbor whose son got his hand caught in a meat grinder. Grandma, I think it's going to be fine. Does your jacket have a lining? My jacket has a lining. Bring a hat. Voicemail 1 day later. 1 second. Live theater. Voicemail 1 day later. Bessie, your grandfather says there are brown bears in Yosemite and they've become domesticated because tourists are giving them food. But if they come up to you and you don't have any food, guess who they're going to eat? But they're not the worst of your problems. Grizzly bears are the real threat. If you even see a grizzly bear, it's already too late. I'm being serious, Bessie. You must be careful. Click. Phone call 2 days later. Grandma, I got your voicemail. I barely have reception. I'm standing in a field. Bessie, thank God. I talked to Charlie and all the bears are hibernating. That's a myth. They wake up and they eat. The chances of me being attacked by a bear are small. Speaking of animals, tomorrow we're riding horses. Horses are vegetarian. Oh, Bessie, oh my. What did I say? Have I told you about your mother's friend, Lisa Belsky? Yes, the woman who didn't wear a helmet. She was on her honeymoon in the south of France, and she thought it would be a good idea to take a romantic ride on horseback through some vineyard or other. And they were riding along, and your mother's friend Lisa's horse got spooked. Who knows why? Maybe there was a bee, and the horse tossed her off, and she landed on her head, and she was paralyzed immediately. And then do you know what happened? What happened? Her husband abandoned her for a stewardess. So that is Bobby. That's my grandma. And now I will switch gears and take you to a part of the book that occupies a different place in my heart and brain. It's a section called 1 Week Dead, and it's on page 178. And it leads into a little surprise presentation that I have for you after this. I will not dance or sing. Okay. 1 Week Dead. It's very odd what you'll take from my apartment the week I die. It will be during the Shiva, the second day, and you'll be on a mission for nothing in particular. Whatever seems to call out to you. A thief on a blind scavenger hunt, tomb raiding for tchotchkes. You'll take a paper grocery bag from under the sink and walk room to room while your mother sits on the sofa in the living room staring at her phone. 3 white cotton handkerchiefs with a floral needlepoint embroidered in the corners. Egg with a brass hinge in the middle. An orange and blue silk Pierre Cardin scarf stained with brown makeup along an edge. A size 8 pinstriped thick cotton button-down Brooks Brothers shirt. A retractable makeup brush inlaid with pink and orange enamel squares. A small gold makeup compact full of pressed powder and the applicator puff. A copy of my wedding invitation. A menu from my wedding dinner. A copy of my first learner's permit. A picture of me at your age, laughing on a boat next to an American flag. A blue Bic pen from my bedside table, missing the cap. Another lipstick. Chanel. Rouge Coco. It'll be difficult to imagine your mother as a particularly affectionate grandmother. She could barely hold you when you were a baby. You were always falling out of her arms, wriggling free, one leg sticking out to the ground, her hand hoisting you by the crotch. She didn't indulge you. She waited until you were done talking, and then she went into another room, relieved and amused, wondering if you were falling behind in math. Here's what I predict. She'll drop everything for your child. She and your father will move to Los Angeles. They'll both be hired, and she's been planning it for years. She'll rent an apartment. She'll wait for your calls. Mom? She'll take the child to school. She'll have her own car seat for the baby that's better than yours, and a backup just in case, driving 5 miles an hour, talking sweetly the whole way, in a voice that will seem alien to you. She'll wait patiently outside the child's classroom, reading the New York Times, the Washington Post on her iPad. She'll learn a new smile, the smile for your baby. She'll take the baby on long walks and talk to them right into their eyes. She'll notice the child likes peas and your freezer will be full of peas. There will be endless shopping bags full of bibs and swaddles and plastic stroller attachments in boxes you'll never open. You wait. If you have a daughter, your daughter will fight with you the way you fought with your mother and the way your mother fought with me. She'll scream bloody murder when you don't take her side. She'll need you'll be impossible to please. She'll tell you she hates you. She'll mean it with all her heart. Her face will turn red and her mouth will go tight. She'll storm off and slam the door and you'll hear her cry on the other side. The whole thing. You won't follow. Close your own door and you'll cry. Charlie will go to you the way your father went to your mother and your grandfather went to me. And she'll resent you for it. Not him, never him, the saint, the captive. She'll call you Bess once and you'll scream, I'm your mother. No, you're not. Yes, you are. That's when you'll know. Yes, you are. She'll prefer you to your mother. She'll prefer your mother to you by the time she's 10. Daughters can't wait to get away from their mothers. They can't wait to fall into their grandmother's arms. Don't say I never told you so. So I read those 2 final sections for a bit of a reveal. Is that I have those objects here and can actually show them to you. This is something that I wouldn't be able to do in a real bookshop. I would never let these items leave my house. Because of our unique situation, they can be beholden by you virtually. So here is that tiny Limoges egg, this porcelain egg, which is so fancy and so useless. It holds a special thing in it. It holds the I'm not going to open it. It holds, in a Jewish funeral, the mourners are given a little black pin to wear, a ribbon, and the one for my grandmother's funeral is in her little Limoges egg. And it sits on my desk, helping me write. The aforementioned handkerchief, here it is, fascinating. This is now a strange, morbid video. Here is the silk scarf that is way too fancy for me to ever wear. Pierre Cardin. Oh. Pierre Cardin, the genuine article. And it has a little bit of her makeup on it in a corner that I never touch. I fold that up like the flag. And then a very fun thing to me, and maybe to you, this I have never shown anyone before. This is something that wasn't even in the book. It's a postcard. Picture is in the book. What's on the back isn't. This is a postcard of my grandmother and grandfather on one of the trips that they took. They would leave their children for like 2 months at a time to go to Europe. This is what they sent their children, who were essentially abandoned at home. She was not a very good mother all of the time, and that's a big part of the book. She sent her children a picture of her with her husband, my grandfather, smiling, and on the back is a message in her handwriting, par avion, airmail, and it says, "Hi kids and Maggie." I assume Maggie was the nanny. "We are all fine. Athens was warm, and we are now on our way to Belgrade, Yugoslavia, then on to Davos Tuesday. Borrow the slide projector from Damashkin's." Lenny Damashkin is very nice. "Don't forget about the speed instructions for developing the film. Love, Mom." So with that, I will let Bobby Bell have the absolute last word. Such a cool thing to send. Maybe one day my husband and I will send our son a similar message. But this is her. All of those objects and this book, that's her. The myth, the legend, Bobby. Thank you so much for joining me in celebrating her memory and her life and her lessons. And I would be so happy to answer any questions that you have about her, about the book, about me, or just to talk. It's just nice to talk to people. So with that, I'll hand it to Evan to hand to you. Or
Thanks,
is that
Beth.
not how it works?
Thanks, Bess. That was lovely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi everyone. So, yeah, if you have any more questions, please feel free to comment at any point. We do have a few so far. Julie Vader asks, "Did you cry a lot while writing the book?"
Yes, I did. I cried like a lunatic occasionally. I didn't read any of the really sad parts because we don't need that. But the ending of the book, I cried. I cried a lot writing it. It's imagining my grandmother's death, like the moments of it, and her thoughts about it, and her thoughts about her life, and that was a dark place, but also a profound excavation of my own fears about death and dying and love. And so writing that, I cried like a maniac, and my husband ended up coming into the room like with this like stricken look on his face. He just like walked in and looked at me, and he was like, "What happened?" And I was like, and he was like, "Oh, you idiot, you're just writing." And he's like, "You worked yourself up." And I was like, "No, it's my grandma." And he's like, you are the one writing it." And I was like, "You don't understand." And it's very healthy between us as a result. So that's so I cried a lot, and I also, as you could probably tell from me talking to myself like this, I tend to laugh at my own jokes more than anyone else. And so I laughed a lot writing it. I cracked myself up and worked myself into into sorrow. So sorry, Julie.
Thank you. That was great. I have another question from Carrie Cohen. I heard that the book might be turned into a movie. Can you tell us anything about that?
Ooh, I can't really tell much more. So the answer is yes. I'm so lucky that I that the option to the book was recently acquired by a really fantastic production company that I'm so excited about working with. I love the movies that they've made. And as soon as they put out a press release, I can share it with um, the world. I'm not trying to be coy. I'm new. I'm like very green to that business, to movie business. And so I have to play according to those rules that I don't quite understand. But I can tell you, yes, it's being made into a movie. Hopefully, it's being adapted into a movie. Hopefully, that becomes a movie. And I'm happy to take your suggestions on who should play Bobby. I, of course, will be played by a young Catherine Zeta-Jones. So, yeah, Mask of Zorro era specifically.
Next question is from Caitlin Hoover. Caitlin asks, have you looked up Eleanor Porter, host of the infamous Sleepover, online?
No. What? Do you know about it, Evan?
I don't know. Have to do some sleuthing.
Eleanor Porter, no. But the idea of a sleepover online sounds like a horror movie, and I don't want a web camera on throughout the night. So.
Oh, sorry, I maybe misread that. I think that she was asking if you looked up online about Eleanor Porter, the infamous host of the.
Oh no, I haven't, but I will after this.
Right on. And thank you, by the way, everyone, for your questions.
Yes, thank you so much.
The next one is from Kathleen. Kathleen, she asks, have you found humor writing at all helpful in processing pain and grief?
Oh, Kathleen, yes, 100%. It's the only. I don't process pain and grief. I just write comedy about it and then let that serve as the processing. My job as a late night writer is to absorb the day's news and then turn that into a joke. And in the past 3 years, that's been really hard to do because the news is just so fucking. Bleep that for Facebook. The news is really a nightmare. So comedy has been my coping mechanism since I was a child, and remains it as an adult living in Trump's pandemic America. I really have not found a topic that I can't write a joke about, as long as it's not punching down. So, yeah.
Thank you. Next question is from Tamara. Sorry if I mispronounced that. The question is, are your parents still living, and do they remember the stories the same way that you do?
Yes. So the part of the reason why I read that last passage, because it's finally something I can read and then talk about, is it 100% came true. My parents are still living, very, very much. They moved to LA when I had my baby. My mom has a nicer car seat than I do for the baby. Our house is full of fancy crap that I have not opened. If they're watching this, I'm sure they're not. I've actually donated a lot of the stuff because our baby doesn't need a ton of stuff. He's very simple. But yeah, my parents are still alive. They live a 5-minute drive from us in LA. They're from New York. I grew up in Morningside Heights. They have somebody living in their apartment now, and they moved to LA. They see my child until recently every single day. So they're doing great. Thank you, Tamara.
Next question is from Patty. How long did it take you to write the book from conception?
So I wrote the book in these 2-week super productive chunks. I had a full-time job as a writer at Jimmy Kimmel Live while I was writing this book, and the only way to do that, I thought I could write at night or write on the weekends. I couldn't. When I was working, I really was just doing my job. I couldn't turn off like TV writer brain and turn on author brain. So I did the whole thing during hiatuses from the show. I would rent an Airbnb, and the financial pressure of like knowing I was paying $130 a night for a cabin. Part of it was in the Bay Area, Point Reyes. Was my favorite place. One of my favorite places. I don't know why I'm being super political, but I'm not running for office. It is one of my favorite places. And so in these Airbnbs or friends' houses, a relative's house, I would write the book in dawn till midnight, gun to my head chunks. And all told, in real time, that's from about October of 2017 to I was 3 months pregnant, so February of 2019. And so that's 2 years from first sentence to second pass of the manuscript. But really it was like 20 weeks, if that makes sense. Yeah, it took a long time, and I couldn't have done it if I didn't have these designated writing times. Thank you, Patty.
So that's all the questions I have right now. I just put out another call to see if there were any others. I have a short question though, which is are you putting together shelter in place jokes yet? Is it a little too soon? Are you how does this time factor into your writing so far?
Yeah, I've written a bunch of quarantine jokes for my boss, who was my boss until recently. I can share this with everybody. I gave my notice at Kimmel 3 days before shelter in place happened. So it was the last Wednesday I was at the office, which was 2.5 weeks ago. Yesterday was my last day. And so for the past few weeks, I've been writing jokes about quarantine for Jimmy to say. And now I write jokes on Twitter. That's been a big platform for my development as a writer. And the jokes that I've been writing on Twitter on my Twitter handle, if you follow me, it's at Bess Bell. If you don't worry about it. Don't do it. I'm like plugging myself in the apocalypse. Oh my God. But yeah, I do write jokes about it every day. And sometimes I delete them if they don't get a lot of likes really quickly. So yeah, I think my husband and I mostly like the jokes. It's not just jokes that I write about it. It's like the jokes that we say to each other during the pandemic. As a professional comedy writer, the level of comedy in my house is like sub-basement level. Like they're like, we're not funny with each other. I'm not funny, but one thing that my husband and I have been doing recently is I'll like grab my bag and put on my shoes and I'll go, I'm running to the mall. Do you need anything? And it kills every time. So that's like our shelter in place joke. Or the meanest thing that's ever happened is my husband called and he was like, hey, where did he say he was? I want to get it right. Oh yeah, he was like, hey, I'm at the Americana at Brand, which is a Glendale gallery. And he was like, did you say you needed something from the Mac store? And I was like, well, we would die. So anyway, yeah, it's important to joke about this.
So I got a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So another one from Patty. She asks, did you always know you were going to write about your grandma?
So my grandma started talking at me when I was an infant, and we spent so much time together that the stories that are in the book are stories that I could, like, if you started the first 3 words of it, I could just like launch into it like double dutch. It's just like, these are the stories that are in my head because she put them there. And so I have a very, I almost said cool show and tell thing. Get ready to see my yoga pants. The first book I ever wrote, okay. this, oh my God, I'm excited. I excited myself. Nobody will care. I wrote this when I was 8 years old. It's called The Life Story of Barbara Otis Bell. It's literally my grandma's goddamn life story that I wrote and illustrated as a child for an assignment that was like, write a story about a fascinating person from history. And I was like, I've got it. So yeah, so let this be I will send this, I will put this online somehow. Truly, nobody is asking for this, but I will put it on my, like, maybe Instagram stories. I don't know. It's not great. I will say it's not very good, but the Leo and the story about her twin brothers switching places and one taking the bar when the other was dying for his identical twin brother, that's in here. So I will, I'm not telling it. But yeah, I've also, the answer is, here's proof that I have always been writing about my grandmother. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thanks.
One more question. This is from Julie. Were you channeling your grandma when you wrote those hilarious motherly tweets responding to the president years ago?
No, I was not. My grandma was never patronizing. She really wasn't. She would say exactly how she felt all the time with no sugarcoating. That was very much a different character. If my grandma were to tweet at Donald Trump, it would be in all caps, and she would just say, "You're terrible."
She would not have been wrong.
She would not have been wrong.
Well, Bess, thank you so much. This has been really lovely, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you, Evan. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you to everybody who humored me, and thank you to Booksmith. Thank you to Evan. Thank you to readers and people who are supporting local bookstores. Buy any book, and let's keep these types of things happening because of great places like Booksmith. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bess, and everybody watching. I'll drop the link for Bess's book in the comments. Hope you buy it from us. We'll send it right to you, and hope we can all meet in real life sometime soon. Bess, thanks again.
Of course, everybody stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.